And oh my goodness, this is the same guy that said he will outdo any woman that walks into the room because the girls are just not doing it.
I don't attract gay men, and I'm not attracted to gay men. Like, it's just not a thing.
Tell me more about that.
But no, but to be honest, it's like, that's why I don't really go to, I don't go to gay clubs. I don't go to, gay things, because it's like the men that I attract are not there.
Straight to Dr. Melman's office, and then that's when he told me I had HIV.
The conversation around E.J. Johnson is getting louder, and this time, even his father, Magic Johnson, is being pulled into the drama. E.J. has always been known for a bold, feminine style and for expressing himself exactly how he wants. But after some of his recent comments about women and dating started making the rounds, critics accused him of taking that confidence way too far. Instead of simply celebrating his own identity, some viewers felt E.J. was comparing himself to women in a way that was guaranteed to get people talking. What makes the situation even more interesting is Magic's role in E.J.'s life. Magic has publicly supported his son since E.J. came out as gay, and that support has been a major part of their story for years. Still, supporting your child doesn't mean agreeing with every single thing they say. As the online debate grew, people began wondering what Magic really thought about E.J.'s comments, and whether the basketball legend would ever challenge his son when things got messy. At the same time, rumors about E.J.'s personal health began floating around online, but those unverified claims shouldn't distract from the actual controversy. Magic's own well-known health history has also been discussed for decades. Though that isn't the main issue here, the real heat came from E.J.'s appearance in an interview with Carlos King. During the conversation, E.J. made comments about women, attraction, and the kind of men who approach him. His remarks quickly caught attention because some listeners interpreted them as E.J. suggesting that certain straight women might feel jealous of the attention he receives from men. That was enough to set social media off. Critics questioned whether E.J. was simply speaking with confidence or throwing unnecessary shade at women.
And also, like, they're like, they kind of like wave you off. You're just like, oh, that, hey girl, like, it's not, you're not in here. I just was like, there's something about this room. It's like, it's almost like they don't want me here. Like, I'm not really in it.
And that's where this story gets complicated. E.J. has built his public image around being fearless, fashionable, openly gay, and comfortable showing a feminine side. Nobody has to fit into somebody else's box when it comes to personal style or self-expression. But when confidence turns into comparisons with other people, especially women, viewers are going to have opinions. Now, the spotlight isn't just on E.J.'s fashion or dating life. It's on exactly what he said, how people interpreted it, and what Magic thinks about his son's increasingly controversial public comments. E.J. took things even further when he explained that he doesn't really date other gay men and doesn't usually spend time in spaces specifically meant for gay men because that's simply not who he says he's interested in. That comment immediately had people debating his mindset. Some critics accused E.J. of distancing himself from the very community he's part of, while others argued that everybody has their own dating preferences. Either way, the way he described it had social media looking at him sideways, especially because E.J. has always been very open about being gay, while also embracing a bold, feminine image. Then came the comments that really turned up the heat.
To be clear, the gay community room.
Yeah.
Of your own community. Yeah.
But it's not like a shameful thing, or just like, oh, they're mean to me, but it's like, these are not my men in terms of attraction, but like, these are not the men that are interested in me. I do that when I go to the straight.
E.J. suggested that he looks better than the average woman, and people online wasted absolutely no time reacting. E.J.'s fashion has long been influenced by glamorous, feminine looks, so critics thought it was wild that he appeared to be comparing himself directly with women. Instead of seeing it as harmless confidence, some viewers felt he was turning personal style into an unnecessary competition. And once those clips started circulating, the comment sections got messy fast. There was also plenty of debate about E.J. saying that he tends to attract men who identify as straight. Some viewers questioned that claim, while others pointed out that another person's identity or private life can't really be determined from the outside. Still, E.J. speaking so confidently about the attention he receives became one of the biggest talking points from the interview. What might have sounded like confidence to him came across as bragging to some viewers, especially when women were being brought into the comparison. And social media definitely wasn't gentle. One person posted a harsh comment criticizing E.J.'s appearance and questioning his identity outside of his famous family. Another person pushed back against the comparison EJ appeared to be making, saying, "You could never, ever compete with the blueprint of what you are trying to become."
And oh my goodness, this is the same guy that said he will outdo any woman that walks into the room because the girls are just not doing it.
Those reactions show just how quickly EJ's comments turned a regular interview into a full-blown online controversy. Now people are really going in on EJ. He has faced criticism before, but these latest comments pushed the conversation to another level. Some viewers even dragged his father, Magic Johnson, into the situation, questioning whether Magic should have had more conversations with EJ about relationships, identity, and respect when EJ was younger. But putting all of EJ's choices on Magic doesn't exactly add up, especially when EJ is now a grown man responsible for his own words. EJ has previously discussed coming out to his family when he was young, and Magic has spoken publicly about learning how to support his son. Their relationship wasn't always simple, and Magic has acknowledged that he had his own learning process as a father. Over time, however, he became publicly supportive of EJ and his identity. That's why some people think it's unfair to act like Magic should somehow be responsible for every controversial opinion EJ expresses decades later. A parent can offer guidance, but they can't control what their adult child chooses to say. The bigger issue critics are raising is EJ's own attitude toward other gay men. Some interpreted his podcast comments as showing internalized negativity toward parts of the gay community, particularly because he openly discussed avoiding certain gay spaces while saying he's attracted to men who identify as straight.
Especially if I look cuter than any girl does, like, what's the problem? Like, what's the issue? And that's exactly how I apply it to myself to these days in the way that I present, like in my, in my feminine regalia. I've always been a feminine being, and like, that's just like how I best express myself.
That's an interpretation of his remarks, not something anyone can simply diagnose from a podcast clip. Still, critics believe EJ has had plenty of time to think about how those comments might sound, especially when he's speaking publicly to a huge audience. And then, Magic's personal history started getting pulled into the discussion too. Back in 1991, Magic Johnson publicly announced that he had tested positive for HIV, a moment that became major international news. At the time, HIV carried enormous stigma and misinformation, and Magic's announcement helped bring much more public attention to the condition. He has since spent decades speaking openly about HIV awareness and prevention. But Magic's HIV status doesn't determine whether he can give his son advice, and using his diagnosis as a reason to dismiss him only distracts from what people are actually debating here. EJ's own words, dating preferences, and the controversy they created. For years, Magic Johnson's HIV diagnosis also became the target of all kinds of rumors about his private life. Some people speculated about his sexuality and made unsupported claims about how he contracted HIV. But speculation isn't evidence, and Magic himself has publicly said that he believes he contracted HIV through unprotected sexual relationships with women. That's an important distinction, because HIV doesn't determine someone's sexual orientation, and the rumors surrounding Magic often reflected the intense stigma and misinformation that existed around HIV, especially in the early 1990s. The timing made the situation especially difficult for Magic and his family. In September 1991, Magic married his longtime partner, Cookie Johnson, and only weeks later, in November, he publicly announced that he had tested positive for HIV. Cookie was pregnant with their son EJ at the time, meaning the couple suddenly had much bigger concerns than the headlines and gossip exploding around them.
So, of course, the internet is going crazy because the picture is not flattering at all. It does not suit him well in this picture. It looks like he may not have makeup on. I don't know, but given his statements that he said on the Carlos King show just a few months ago that he is outdoing any woman that walks into the room, the girlies aren't doing it. Just mind-blowing seeing this photo and people in the comments really giving their opinion.
Cookie later described the fear surrounding that period as they waited to learn whether she and their unborn child had also been affected. Thankfully, Cookie tested negative for HIV, and EJ was also born without HIV. But the public attention didn't disappear after those results came back. Magic's announcement became one of the biggest stories in sports and entertainment, and people spent years dissecting his personal life, sometimes repeating rumors as though they were proven facts. Magic eventually became a major public voice for HIV awareness, but the scrutiny surrounding his family remained part of the story. And decades later, people still bring that history up whenever EJ lands in another controversy. Magic's diagnosis also raised serious concerns for his family, because Cookie was pregnant with EJ at the time. When Magic announced in 1991 that he had tested positive for HIV, both Cookie and their unborn child needed to be tested. Magic has been open about having multiple sexual partners before his diagnosis, and he has said that he believes he contracted HIV through unprotected sex with a woman. Thankfully, Cookie tested negative for HIV, and EJ was born without HIV. But one question followed Magic for years. Who did he contract HIV from? Magic maintained that it was a woman, yet rumors about his sexuality continued spreading. A huge reason for that was the climate surrounding HIV and AIDS in the early 1990s. Gay and bisexual men were heavily associated with the epidemic in public discussion, which contributed to damaging stereotypes and misinformation. The reality is that HIV can affect people regardless of sexual orientation. Magic's diagnosis became a major moment partly because one of the world's most famous athletes was publicly challenging assumptions about who could contract the virus. Cookie's decision to remain with Magic also became a major part of their public story. Rather than disappearing when the headlines became intense, the couple stayed together, raised their family, and spoke publicly about what they went through. Magic later became a prominent advocate for HIV education and prevention, helping push conversations about testing, safer practices, and the importance of getting accurate information instead of relying on stereotypes. And this is where the conversation suddenly swings back to EJ.
Good after late afternoon. Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers today. The dazzling career of one of the world's best-known athletes is over.
Social media users have circulated vague claims about EJ's health, with some people even trying to connect those rumors to Magic's HIV status. But there's a major problem. Online speculation isn't a medical record. There is no reason to present an unverified diagnosis as fact simply because somebody posted it on social media. Unless EJ publicly confirms a medical condition or reliable reporting establishes it, those claims remain exactly what they are: rumors. The real controversy surrounding EJ is already dramatic enough without inventing a secret diagnosis, especially when his comments about dating, straight identifying men, women, and the gay community have given viewers plenty to debate. If you remember, Magic Johnson announced that he had tested positive for HIV in 1991, while Cookie was pregnant with EJ. That timing has fueled rumors online for years, including claims suggesting that Cookie somehow contracted HIV from Magic and then passed it to EJ. But here's the important part. There is no credible evidence supporting that story. Publicly documented accounts say Cookie tested negative for HIV, and EJ was born without HIV. So repeating an online theory as though it's a hidden medical secret would seriously distort what is actually known. Still, social media loves a wild theory, and some users continue trying to connect Magic's medical history with EJ simply because they're father and son. That's not how someone's HIV status should be assumed or discussed. Unless EJ chooses to disclose something about his own health, random posts can't establish a diagnosis. And honestly, EJ's actual public comments have already created more than enough controversy without dragging an unsupported medical rumor into the mix. What really kept people talking were EJ's comments about women, his appearance, and the attention he says he receives from straight identifying men. Critics felt his confidence crossed into unnecessary competition with women, while others questioned his claims about the men who pursue him. One social media user summed up that criticism by saying, EJ Johnson in his size 30 kitten heels, talking about how he's better than women, he looks better and gets more money, that's why straight men like him, yada yada yada. Like mama, you are with DL men who don't want to be seen with you. That reaction quickly became part of the larger debate around EJ. Instead of focusing on how he chooses to dress or express himself,
I just want to make clear, first of all, that I do not have the AIDS disease, but I know a lot of you want to know that, but the HIV virus. Magic Johnson confirmed today that he has the AIDS virus.
The bigger issue for many viewers was the way he appeared to compare himself with women while talking about who finds him attractive. And once those clips hit social media, People weren't just discussing his fashion anymore. They were picking apart his dating claims, his confidence, and whether some of those comments went way too far. And that criticism opens up a much bigger question about what EJ was actually trying to say in that interview. Was he simply being playful and extremely confident, or was he intentionally throwing shade at women to make himself look more desirable? Those are two very different things, and without the full context behind every remark, it's easy for short clips to make the situation look even more heated than it was. Still, the comparisons didn't come out of nowhere, and that's exactly why certain parts of the interview rubbed viewers the wrong way. EJ has never been shy about his feminine fashion or the way he presents himself. Over the years, he's stepped onto red carpets in everything from dramatic gowns and thigh-high boots to sheer outfits and statement pieces that immediately grab attention. That fearless style became a huge part of his public identity. But there's a difference between saying you feel beautiful in your own skin and suggesting you're somehow doing femininity better than women themselves. For critics, that's where EJ's message started getting messy. At the same time, some people defended EJ and argued that his words were being taken far too seriously. They saw his comments as exaggerated confidence, the kind of playful bragging celebrities regularly use during interviews. From that perspective, EJ wasn't literally trying to erase or replace women. He was hyping himself up and talking about the attention he believes he gets from men. But even playful comments can land differently once millions of people start hearing them outside the original conversation. And there was another detail people couldn't ignore. EJ is Magic Johnson's son. Growing up around enormous wealth, fame, celebrity connections, and one of the biggest names in basketball, gave EJ a life very different from the average person's. So when he talks confidently about his looks, money, dating options, and the people pursuing him, some viewers hear confidence, while others hear privilege speaking loud and clear. That famous last name has followed EJ everywhere, and now people are questioning how much of his public persona comes from genuine self-confidence, and how much comes from knowing he's been connected to celebrity status his entire life.
Straight to Dr. Melman's office, and then that's when he told me I had HIV.
And when you first heard those words, what was the thought in your mind?
Oh, I was just devastated. I'm asking them 100 times, are you sure? And they said, hey, we ran the test a couple of times, and yes, you do have HIV. And so I just lost it right there. You know, you just sit there and say, what does this mean? Am I going to die? Because I definitely asked him that. And he said, well.
That famous last name also makes Magic's reaction especially important. Magic has spent years showing that he supports EJ, even while admitting that understanding his son's identity was a learning process for him. Their relationship has been discussed publicly many times, and EJ has spoken about having parents who ultimately stood behind him. So the issue here isn't whether Magic accepts that his son is gay or comfortable expressing himself in a feminine way. From everything they've publicly shared, that question was settled a long time ago. The more interesting issue is whether Magic agrees with everything EJ says. Supporting your adult child doesn't mean giving every comment a free pass, especially when those comments can be interpreted as disrespectful toward women or dismissive of other gay men. That's why some viewers started looking toward Magic and wondering whether he would ever privately tell EJ, you can be confident without putting somebody else down. So every use has have a have in. To be clear, that's not a confirmed quote from Magic. It's simply the kind of message critics believe EJ needs to hear. And Magic knows better than most what happens when one statement becomes bigger than the person who made it. Since his 1991 announcement that he had tested positive for HIV, he's spent decades dealing with public scrutiny, rumors, and people making assumptions about his private life. That history may be one reason he's careful about family matters in public. Magic has also used his platform to challenge misinformation about HIV, which makes the unsupported health rumors aimed at EJ especially unfair to present as facts. But EJ doesn't seem interested in building his public image around being quiet or playing it safe. His whole brand has been confidence, fashion, luxury, and refusing to shrink himself for other people's comfort. That confidence is part of what made him stand out in the first place. The problem comes when that same energy is interpreted as looking down on the people around him. And there's another layer people keep bringing up: the men EJ says he's attracted to. If he prefers men who identify as straight, that's his personal preference. But viewers started questioning what he meant when he described those interactions, and whether the label straight really tells the whole story about the men he's talking about. And that word straight is exactly where the conversation gets tricky. If a man describes himself as straight, that's his identity to explain, not something strangers can automatically redefine from a podcast clip. Attraction and identity can be complicated, and nobody watching from the outside knows the full story of EJ's private relationships. So the bigger issue isn't trying to slap labels on these men. It's understanding why EJ brought their identity into the conversation in the first place. For some viewers, EJ seemed to be using attention from straight identifying men, almost like a status symbol. The way critics interpreted his comments, the message wasn't simply, "These are the men I'm attracted to." Instead, they felt he was suggesting that getting attention from men who usually date women somehow made him more desirable. And once women were brought into that comparison, people immediately started asking why dating needed to become a competition at all. There's also a contradiction that critics couldn't ignore.
You have a chance to live for a long time with all the new drugs that are coming down the pipeline. But the toughest thing, Gail, that I had to do was really drive home and tell Cookie. It was hard because I loved her so much and I hated to hurt her. Even today, it's still the toughest thing I've ever had to do in my life.
The Johnsons were married a little over a month when Magic announced his diagnosis, and they had just learned Cookie was pregnant.
EJ has built a career partly around challenging traditional expectations of how a man is supposed to dress and present himself. He's worn feminine clothing proudly, experimented with glamorous looks, and refused to let conventional gender expectations dictate his wardrobe. That kind of confidence has earned him plenty of supporters. But those same supporters may still disagree when his comments appear to rely on rigid ideas about who counts as straight, who gets to be feminine, or who is supposedly winning somebody else's attention. That's why reducing the entire controversy to EJ's clothes misses what people are actually arguing about. A man wearing heels, dresses, makeup, or any other traditionally feminine style isn't automatically disrespecting women. EJ being openly gay isn't the problem either. The criticism is centered on the comparisons he made and the way some listeners interpreted his comments about other gay men and women. And underneath all of this is something EJ has dealt with since becoming a public figure. People constantly trying to decide what his identity should look like. Being Magic Johnson's son only magnified that spotlight. But EJ has also shown that he knows exactly how to command attention, and when Carlos King gave him room to speak freely, he certainly didn't hold back. The next question is whether EJ understood just how differently those comments would sound once they left that interview chair and reached people who weren't already familiar with his larger-than-life personality. And once those comments escaped the interview room, context became everything. A few seconds of EJ speaking with his usual confidence can hit completely differently when clipped, reposted, and placed next to somebody else's reaction. That's why it's important to separate what EJ actually said from what social media users think he meant. The original remarks can be criticized without adding claims that EJ never made, or treating somebody's interpretation like confirmed fact. Carlos King also knows how to get his guests comfortable enough to speak freely. That kind of interview can reveal much more than a polished red carpet answer, because the guest starts talking naturally, joking around, and sometimes saying things they probably wouldn't put in a carefully written statement. EJ appeared comfortable owning his preferences and his confidence, but the moment women became part of that conversation, the tone changed for many listeners. Some viewers heard EJ hyping himself up and thought, he's clearly being extra on purpose. Others heard something more dismissive, especially when his comments about attracting straight-identifying men were discussed alongside comparisons with women. That's where the backlash gained more substance. People weren't simply reacting to a man wearing feminine clothes, they were asking why women needed to become the measuring stick for EJ's attractiveness in the first place. Then there is EJ's relationship with the gay community, which adds another complicated layer. Having a dating preference is one thing. Saying you're not interested in dating gay men is also EJ's choice. But when someone is a highly visible gay public figure, the language they use around other gay men can carry extra weight. Critics interpreted parts of his interview as EJ putting distance between himself and people who share his sexual orientation, while supporters could argue that he was only describing who personally catches his attention. What shouldn't happen is turning that disagreement into attacks on EJ's gender expression. EJ has publicly identified as a gay man, and his feminine fashion doesn't make him less of a man, or automatically mean he's trying to become a woman. Clothing and mannerisms don't determine somebody's gender or sexual orientation.
Key moment was when Cookie took the test and the results came back that her and the baby was fine.
That must have been a huge relief
yes,
for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I was scared to death. I wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay, the baby was going to be okay, and then I could move forward with trying to make sure I was going to be okay.
The sharper criticism is about his actual words, because those can be examined without mocking the way he walks, talks, dresses, or presents himself. And that's where Magic's influence becomes interesting again. EJ grew up watching his father navigate fame on a massive scale, survive relentless scrutiny, and learn that one public statement can follow you for decades. Magic knows exactly what that pressure looks like, but whether EJ wants that kind of advice from his father is another question entirely. And that's exactly what had people questioning EJ's comments. One person asked, "Why would women be competing with you for DL men?" Another person said, "The issue I have with what EJ Johnson said was, why was he shading women? If you want to sleep with DL men, do so. Why you think you're better than women coming off nasty like that? I just don't understand." And that's really the main issue people seem to have with EJ. Nobody is saying he can't be confident, dress however he wants, or date whoever he chooses. But some viewers felt he crossed the line when that confidence started sounding like a competition with women. Instead of simply talking about his own dating life, his comments left people wondering why women even needed to be part of the comparison. As for those rumors about EJ supposedly having some kind of medical condition, there's no credible evidence supporting them. Magic Johnson publicly announced that he had tested positive for HIV in 1991, but that doesn't tell us anything about EJ's health. Random speculation on social media shouldn't be treated like a confirmed diagnosis. But now I want to know what you think. Was EJ just being extra and showing confidence? Or did his comments about women go too far? And do you think people started spreading those health rumors simply because they were angry about what he said? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, share the video, and leave a comment with your take. Then click here to watch the next messy story.